Looking for a fresh style? Come to Hairspray Salon, your full-service destination for beauty. From cuts, coloring, and perms to flawless formal styles and makeup, our stylists do it all. Treat yourself with gel, dip, or acrylic nails, plus relaxing pedicures and professional waxing services. Need a thoughtful gift? Ask about our gift certificates. Hairspray Salon is open Monday through Friday, with Saturdays available by appointment. Feel confident, look beautiful at Hairspray Salon.
Show your school spirit with a BTC Bank Mascot Debit Card. For each swipe of your Mascot Debit Card, BTC Bank donates 7.5 cents to the school represented on your card. It's a simple step you can take to have a big impact on your community at no cost to you. Stop by a branch today to get your Mascot Debit Card and start making a difference immediately. Visit btcbank.bank to learn more. Member FDIC.
CF Rainey here again, Bulldog Sports TV, Sports Central, brought to you by Harrison County Community Hospital. Joined once again this week by South Harrison varsity girls basketball coach Kale Watson. And Coach, since last we spoke, we'll go ahead and put the games this last week in order. You played Albany in an old GRC matchup, and we kind of talked about last week. They're a team coming in with some younger talent, no seniors, but the ability to score. It was you had, I think, a 7-point lead at halftime. Then they had a 1-point lead at the end of the third quarter. And then I don't know that I'd seen a fourth quarter like that in a long time. You end up getting a big fourth quarter, come out with the win. Maybe just talk about that game and how it went for your Bulldogs.
Yeah, we felt like we could put some pressure on them early. They did some things really well. Credit to Coach Weller, former player. He's done a fantastic job with that program. He's brought them a long ways. It's no shock that they're playing good basketball. They kind of took it to our pressure. They were sending some girls through on a long cut off the inbounder. We had a hard time rotating and taking that away, so we kind of had to sink into the half court. I thought offensively we did a pretty good job there in the second quarter of kind of getting the looks we wanted, obviously going to halftime with the lead. Third quarter, we just broke down defensively. We gave them a ton of paint touches. They did a really good job off their middle ball screen stuff, getting downhill. We just didn't get dug in on the ball side, and then we weren't covering down weak side whenever they would hit the roll man backside. Communication wasn't great in the third. And obviously that's probably what led to them coming out with a 1-point lead in the third quarter. Fourth quarter, I think we put up 21 points and held them to 2 in the fourth. I don't know that I've been involved in one of those quarters in a long time. Obviously I was glad it was on our end of it. Everyone did a really good job defensively. We kind of locked into what we're going to do on the ball screens. We changed it a little bit, trying to show a little bit earlier to keep the Epperly girls from getting downhill and getting to the rim. Bailey Barnett had a whale of a game, 5 threes. I didn't have that on my index card there before the game, but kudos to her. She played a whale of a game. And then everybody else did a really good job of chipping in and kind of extending that lead. And I thought we did a really good job of pressuring them in the half court, which also I think helped jumpstart our transition game there in the fourth. And we did a really good job of being patient and hunting the weak side dump down. But they're a good ball club. It's no shock that they're the 1 seed in their district, and I assume they're probably going to make a run at it. But it was a good team for us to play. They pressured us really hard, and we struggled with that early on. So it was nice to get a win against a team that obviously is I think they've got 19 wins, maybe 20 now. So just a good opponent for us after the week we'd had the week before.
And so it becomes one of those, Coach. You mentioned it, right? You guys want to get out full court pressure. You want to do some things offensively. The ability for you and your staff, right, when things aren't going your way, right? Okay, I think sometimes coaches, we can fall into a trap of this is how we do it. Hey, if the press isn't working, we're not getting easy points, we're going to have to change something. Hey, offensively, if we're not getting these looks, we're going to have to change something. And you mentioned Bailey, those 5 threes, and some of them were so timely early because Albany had the early lead in the first quarter to get you back in the second quarter, then some big ones late as well. Just maybe talk about how you have to adapt when you're playing team. You come in with a game plan, you've watched film, you've done this, it kind of blows up, and how you have to approach it in the middle of the game.
Yeah, I think as a coach, you hope it goes exactly as the scouting report reads. But you got to be able to pivot. You got to be able to maneuver, and I think your full court press is a tactic. It's obviously an identity, but your defense is built in the half court. The better teams you play, at some point, your press may not work, so you've got to be really sound in the half court, and you've got to be able to pressure the basketball and take away the things that they like. And I think that's kind of a staple of who we are. We defend a little different than others at times, but that's unique to us. Um, and I think that it's given a lot of our girls some role clarity, the way we defend and kind of what their role is whenever we defend it and how we stop and transition. But offensively, I thought the biggest thing for us was we had some recognition that we had to execute better in the fourth. And like you said, those threes that Bailey hit were timely. And I thought some other girls in the fourth quarter, I think Katea hit some. I think Ab might have hit one. But we had girls step up. Piper, I think, hit one. We had girls step up and hit those threes at the timely moment where you're taking the lead from 10, now you're getting it to 13, and then you're sprinkling in some of your stuff at the rim and finding a weak side. So that we had a big conversation about, not big, I guess, but I kind of touched home on the girls of, like, obviously, when you look at the GRC and how they look at your points per game. We talked about how we just kind of went down through and read everyone's points per game, and just had a really in-depth conversation, at least from my perspective, of every one of those girls that was on that board has put up double-digit points. Now, when those games were, they were different times, but the biggest thing is that when you have the ability to score, and from a balance standpoint, it doesn't have to come from the same person every night. And I think that's what makes you tough to scout, makes you tough to defend. And that's the beautiful thing about this team, is that they are pretty unselfish, and they'll get the ball going to where it needs to go, whoever's got the hot hand, and then nobody seems to think that it has to stick and stay with them. So that was huge for us in that game, I felt like.
Yeah, and it becomes one of those. And last night you go on the road, finish up at Plattsburg with a win. It is a little ugly early on both sides. You guys kind of jumped out, then they came back. But I was talking to Bailey Barnett's mom, Brooke, who was keeping book, and she was sitting right in front of me. And it's the same thing you just mentioned. The ability to have 5, 6 girls. I mean, more than that can score, but 5 or 6 girls that could put 10 points up on any given night. And some nights you need that because your leading scorers have 0 or 2 or 4 points, and you need someone else to step up to have that 8 and 12. And you kind of had that last night in that game versus Plattsburgh as well.
Yeah. Obviously we talked about that on Wednesday, and it kind of came to fruition on Thursday night. And that's the thing, whenever another team's going to key on, your leading scorers, if you don't have that ability to go to the well down the bench or, down the lineup, you're pretty easy to defend. And I thought last night was just a prime example of that. Bradley Sherrill stepped up, hit some big threes in the first quarter, particularly. Piper Malloy played a whale of a game. And I thought Ambry Hunter did a really good job in the second half of backdoor cutting, and we call it burn cutting, getting to the rim and doing the things that we talked about in our timeouts. And so the ability to, hey, when someone else is getting taken away, we've got other options. And I probably don't tell them this enough. A lot of them would probably start on other people's teams. And I'm glad they're on my team, because I get to bring them off the bench, or I get to put them in situations where now their role is even more important offensively than maybe it was the night before. And this group has done a fantastic job of being okay with that. And I think they understand that their defense is probably as important as their offense. And I think that's what keeps them on the floor for the majority of the time. And last night was just a prime example of that. I think Lex and Bailey probably struggled more than they would have liked, but they've got teammates they can lean on. And that came to fruition last night with Piper, Briley, Ab stepped up. Rory did a really good job on the glass. So it's just nice to have that ability, and you never feel like as a coach that you're under the gun in that situation.
Yeah, and so you get those last 2 regular season. Now you move into districts where it's one and done, where one bad quarter, one bad half can end your season. You've got all these seniors that we mentioned, went undefeated in the GRC for 4 years. And looking at that district, obviously there's a number of teams there, but you just look at those top 4: Carrollton, you all, Lathrop, Lawson. Uh, those are any of those teams. Those other 3 teams could give you a game. Any of those other 3 teams could beat you on a given night. There's enough talent there. And just record wise, Carrollton 22-3, Lathrop 16-10, Lawson 19-7, with your 17-7 coming in. Just maybe kind of give us a preview of how you see that. You guys get the bye, but how you see that district kind of unfolding before you guys.
Yeah, it's a pretty top heavy district when you look at it. All those teams in the top, like you said, the top four have probably at some point in the year beat a good team, or maybe not have played their best basketball time. So I think the top four are probably interchangeable on any given night, and it's going to come down to, like it always does in the postseason, pressure is a privilege. You've got to kind of think of it from that perspective. You're in that spot because of the work you've done in the regular season, but now it's a completely different season. It starts over. It's one and done. You're 0-0 going into every single game. And you got to I think you've got to kind of reframe your mindset. Like it's an opportunity. You're going out to prove something. So every game is magnified. Every possession is magnified. Every timeout, every situation is of high importance. So it's really about making sure as a coaching staff we keep them pretty grounded in the fact that it is still basketball. The other team's got to play on the same court as us. They've got to defend us just like we've got to defend them. And then it comes down to your game plan, your prep work, trying to make sure that you're putting your players in the best position from a scouting standpoint, what you're going to run offensively, how you're going to defend. And then it really boils down, especially in the big ones late in that tournament or even late in games, your special situations, because if you're up and the team's pressing you, you've got to be really rock solid on how you're going to get your entries in the full court, sideline, baseline. And just it comes down to everyone being on the same page. So that's going to be the big task these next, we've got 3 practices, having a bye. It helps. It's one less thing you have to prep for, one less game you've got to prep for. And so you can kind of gear towards that first game that you've got. But the unknown is that you don't know who you play. So the prep work and kind of what you're doing changes. So you've got to be able to maneuver in. And I think this group's proven that they can do that on any given night, depending upon who changes, how they change their defense or what they're going to do offensively. So, the regular season, we've seen a lot of different defenses. We've seen a lot of different offenses. So that's the main thing when you're playing tougher competition. You're trying to see the different things. So it's just going to come down to making sure that we're locked into the game plan, the scout, the prep work, continuing to shoot the basketball. You got to be able to shoot in the postseason. And then, obviously just making sure that we're rested and ready. If you're not rested and ready, you're going to put yourself under the gun there too.
And so I'll ask you one last question, kind of going back a little bit to that Albany game. What does it mean for a team, and that's just the closest one to here in the season, to be down, right? You're down 1 going into the final quarter against a team, and a lot of those girls, and I've talked to them and talked to parents, right, from a team that went to the state championship in softball. They went over to Albany and lost in softball to that Albany team. And we're just a few miles apart, and Albany enjoyed the fact that they beat them. And then you come in and now you think, hey, this is a team we should beat. We've got some senior leaders. We've got an older team. And you're down 1 going into the third. How does that kind of mentality help you if you're in that kind of situation in district play that, hey, we can be down to a team and look at what we did in that game. We can come back and put it to someone in a final period if we need to.
Yeah, I think before that game we talked, obviously you can't not address it. It was going to be out there. It was the elephant in the room. Hey, like we understand that you lost to them in softball, but this is basketball. You want to bring some of that intensity. But we talked about it can't be about egos. It's got to be about execution. And so I think that was early on. We probably were a little amped up, and then I think that probably it took a while for us to get past that. And then I thought in the fourth quarter, that's where we executed. And it's going to be the same thing in the district tournament. Yes, you're the 1 seed, but the 1 in front of your name means absolutely nothing to anyone else. And if anything else, you've got a target on your back. So again, it comes down to it can't be about your ego, can't be about the 1 seed in front of your school's name. It's got to be about execution. It's got to be about doing all the little things correct. And then that was good for us in the fourth quarter because when the game gets tight, if you haven't had enough of those, you're probably not as conditioned to attack or to handle what do you have to do to get some separation so you have a little bit of a lead late in the fourth quarter. So that was good for us to get tested in that situation. And so I hope that's a situation that we can kind of lean on when we need to down the road. Like, hey, we've been here. That happened to us last year against Lawson. I think we were tied going into the third and had a big fourth. So it always is nice to know that you've got that ability. You'd like to hope that you don't put yourself in that situation, but in the postseason, most of those games when they're won by a few possessions here and there, or someone getting on a big run and doing some things really well defensively. So it's just going to be something that we can lean on down the road. And it was good for us to get that.
All right. Well, Coach, we appreciate your time. Good luck next week in districts, and the Bulldog Sports TV will be following the Lady Bulldogs all the way as far as you go. And we're hoping you get to the point where we can't follow you any longer. They're in the Final Four, but we'll be on Mission TV with the Lady Bulldogs next week. So again, we appreciate your time, Coach, and good luck next week.
Thanks, CF.